Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Invitation to English with Teacher Nuruddin. These series of videos are designed to help baccalaureate students who want to get well prepared for their BAC exams. And the first lesson that we're going to see in this video is a lesson of grammar, which is the gerund and infinitive. We're going to see what is a gerund, what is an infinitive, and how do we use the gerund and infinitive as well. So let's get started. Gerund as a form, it has got the form of the verb. Why? Because it is constructed of verb plus ing, like eat, eating, play, playing, drive, driving, and do, doing. And in here, I don't want you to mix up between gerund and continuous tenses. Continuous tenses, we have verb to be plus verb plus ing. But gerund, it is just verb plus ing. Now, what about the use of the gerund? The use of the gerund is like the use of the noun, or gerund acts like a noun. Why? Because we can find it as a subject or object of a sentence. Gerund can be as a subject of a sentence. Example sentence, jogging is my favorite free time activity. Jogging here is a gerund. It is a subject. Why? Because we can find it at the beginning of a sentence and before the verb. Now, gerund can be an object of a sentence. Example sentence, I like jogging in my free time. Jogging here is a gerund and it's an object of a sentence. Why? Because it comes after the verb. Now, what about the use of the gerund? Gerund is used after, number one, certain verbs. Examples, avoid, admit, deny, like, dislike, enjoy, finish, hate, mind, recommend, keep, risk, suggest, stop, start, spend, dread, miss, etc. Example sentences, they haven't finished writing their essays yet. Writing here is a gerund. Why? Because we have verb to finish before it. You must try to avoid making careless mistakes. Making here is a gerund. Why? Because we have verb to avoid before it. He denied stealing the money. Stealing here is a gerund. Why? Because we have verb to deny before it. I regretted breaking the vase or the vase. Breaking here is a gerund. Why? Because we have verb to regret before it. He admitted leaving the door open. So leaving here is a gerund. Why? Because we have verb to admit before it. Would you mind posting this letter for me? Posting here is gerund. Why? Because we have verb to mind before it. Number two, gerund is used after certain adjectives plus prepositions. Examples here, worried about, good at, sorry for, bored with, tired of, capable of, interested in, responsible for, bad at, keen on, fed up with, fond of, nervous about, clever at, afraid of, skilled at, terrified of, frightened of, accustomed to, etc. Example sentences, my sister is fond of cooking. Cooking here is a gerund. Why? Because we have the adjective fond and the preposition of before it. I'm interested in teaching. Teaching here is a gerund. Why? Because we have the adjective interested and preposition in before it. My uncle is keen on collecting stamps. Collecting here is a gerund. Why? Because we have the adjective keen and preposition on before it. Now, number three, verbs plus prepositions. Examples, apologize for, complain about, insist on, succeed in, look forward to, prevent from, reproach for, thank for, give up, etc. Example sentences, the doctor advised her to give up eating fatty food. Eating here is a gerund. Why? Because we have the verb give and preposition up before it. She insists on seeing her lawyer. Seeing here is a gerund. Why? Because we have the verb insist and the preposition on before it. I'm looking forward to visiting Oujda. I heard it's a beautiful city in the east of Morocco. Visiting here is the gerund. Why? Because we have the verb and the adverb and the preposition to before it. So we have the verb look, the adverb forward, and the preposition to before it. So looking forward to is followed by gerund. Number 4. Certain idiomatic phrases. Phrases here means expressions. Examples: it's no use to, can't stand, there is no point in, can't help, be used to, etc. Example sentences: she isn't used to traveling by plane. Traveling here is a gerund. Why? Because we have the idiomatic phrase be used to before it. I can't stand waiting people for a long time. I'm really an impatient person. So waiting here is a gerund. Why? Because we have the idiomatic phrase can't stand before it. There is no point in applying for the job now. The final deadline is over. So applying for here is a gerund. Why? Because we have the idiomatic phrase there is no point in before it. Number 5. The gerund is also used as a subject or object of a sentence, and this is what we've seen before. Gerund as a subject. Example: jogging is my favorite sport. So jogging here is a gerund. It's a subject of a sentence. Why? Because it's at the beginning of a sentence and before the verb, which is verb to be here, is. I find looking after disabled people an enriching experience. So looking after here is a gerund and it's an object of a sentence. Why? Because we can find it after the verb find here. Now, the infinitive. Infinitives are verbs without conjugation, or a verb which is not yet conjugated. And we have 2 types of infinitives. Number 1, infinitive with to. Example: to write, to speak, to apologize, to think. So such verbs are preceded by to. So we call them infinitives with to. Number 2, infinitive without to or bare infinitive. Example: write, speak, apologize, think. So such verbs are not preceded by to. They are bare infinitives. There is no to before them. So an infinitive with to is an infinitive in which we have to before it. An infinitive without to is an infinitive or a verb which is not preceded by to. Now the question here is, when do we use the infinitive with to and the infinitive without to? So let's answer this. B. The infinitive with to is used after, number 1, certain verbs. Examples: afford, fail, prepare, appear, forget, promise, manage, mean, refuse, choose, hope, offer, seem, decide, intend, plan, threaten, want, etc. Example sentences: he fails to pass his BAC exam. So to pass here is an infinitive with to. Why? Because we have verb to fail before it. He doesn't mean to hurt your feelings. He was just joking. To hurt here is an infinitive with to. Why? Because we have verb to mean before it. He refused to help me when I was in need of his support. To help here is an infinitive with to. Why? Because we have verb to refuse before it. Number 2. The infinitive with to comes after certain adjectives. Example: difficult, exciting, interesting, fascinating, amazing, etc. Example sentences: it's always interesting to hear other people's point of view. So to hear here is an infinitive with to. Why? Because we have the adjective interesting before it. I find it too difficult to cope with this hectic life. To cope with is an infinitive with to. Why? Because we have the adjective difficult before it. It's amazing to finish this project before the end of this week. So to finish here is an infinitive with to. Why? Because we have the adjective amazing before it. I find it exciting to spend this summer holiday in Syria. The spend here is an infinitive with to. Why? Because we have the adjective exciting before it. Note, however, that certain verbs can either take the ing form or infinitive with to, but with a difference in meaning. So, some verbs accept both infinitive with to, which is infinitive with to, and the gerund, but the meaning is not the same. Let's see such verbs: stop, remember, try, go on, forget, etc. For example, stop smoking is not the same as stop to smoke. Let's study some examples. Consider the following two examples. A. Jack stopped to talk to his friend. So stop here is followed by an infinitive with to. What does it mean? It means maybe Jack was walking or doing something and stopped in order to talk to his friend. B. Jack stopped talking to his friend. Talking here or stopped here is followed by gerund talking. What does it mean? It means he used to talk to him, they were friends, but now he doesn't anymore. Perhaps they do not get on well with each other any longer. So you see the meaning here is not the same. Stopped with an infinitive with to is not the same as stopped with gerund, so they have different meaning. C. I don't remember locking the door. Remember here is followed by gerund. What does it mean? I have no recollection of the action, so I don't remember whether I locked the door or not. Now, D, I didn't remember to lock the door. So remember here is followed by an infinitive with to. What does it mean? I intended to lock it, but I forgot. So, we use the infinitive with to when we are only talking about a certain period of time or the purpose of doing something. But we use gerund here when we refer to an ongoing activity or an action that happens all the time. So this is the difference between verbs with the gerund and infinitive with the to. C. The infinitive without to or the bare infinitives comes after modals or modal verbs. Examples: can, can't, could, couldn't, may, might, will, would, shall, should, or shouldn't, must, mustn't, ought to, oughtn't to, have to, be able to, etc. We know that modals are followed by an infinitive without to or bare infinitives. Let's study some examples. I must succeed in my BAC exam this year. To succeed here is an infinitive without to. Why? Because we have the modal verb must before it. I can't speak Chinese or even understand it. Speak here is an infinitive without to. Why? Because we have can't before it. I can help you in such research if you don't mind. To help here is an infinitive without to. Why? Because we have can before it. I would like to learn Dutch, but I couldn't find a good language center for that. So like and find are infinitives without to. Why? Because we have the modal verbs would and couldn't before them. Number 2. Infinitive without to comes after some verbs plus objects. Examples: make, let, see, and hear plus object. Example sentences: the news that I've heard make me feel happy. So feel here is an infinitive without to. Why? Because we have the verb make and the object me before it. I can let you have a copy of this book. Have is an infinitive without to. Why? Because we have the verb let and the object you before it. Did you see the man leave the building? So leave here is an infinitive without to. Why? Because we have the verb see and the object the man before it. I heard someone knock on the door. Knock is an infinitive without to. Why? Because we have the verb heard and the the object someone before it. Number 3, the expressions of given advice. Example, you'd better and you had better. Such expressions of given advice are followed by an infinitive without to or bare infinitive. Let's see some examples. I see you're not feeling well today. You'd better go home. Go is an infinitive without to. Why? Because we have the expression of given advice, you'd better before it. If you suffer from diabetes, you'd better consult a doctor regularly. So consult here is an infinitive without to. Why? Because we have the expression of given advice, you'd better before it. You had better review your lessons before the exam date gets closer. Review here is an infinitive without to. Why? We have the expression of given advice, you had better before it. That's it for now. I hope you've benefited from this video, and don't forget to watch the second video for practice to check your understanding. Don't also forget to follow me on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and click like to make this video reach your friends and other students as well. Thank you for lending me your ears and eyes, and see you with another video and of course another lesson. Good luck and goodbye.